video you're about to watch is by Pastor Dean, who went through a lot in terms of walking away from God and doing things to follow, to fit in, and to be popular. He reached a point where he was involved in drugs. Thankfully, he was able to call on the name of Jesus, and he got delivered from drugs. I hope this video inspires you to change. And for those of you who do not, for those of you who know persons who are struggling with drugs, please share this video with them. And remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel as well.
My name is Branford Emmanuel Dane, and it is such a joy to be here and to be asked to share or to talk a little bit about my life. It's something I never hide. I always, when the opportunity arises, to tell the world about it, hoping and knowing what it will do, hoping to deter someone from going down the wrong direction. Again, my name is Branford Dane. I'm a Turks and Caicos Islander, was born here in the Turks and Caicos Island, North Caicos, and at an early age left and went to the Bahamas through my parents. Went to primary school in Homestead Rock, secondary old age school, and I grew up, went to 8 Mile Rock Secondary School, and from there I had a very busy life. In school, I never paid much attention to education and to what the teachers were teaching at that time. It for somehow didn't seem important to me, and it didn't make much sense to me at that time in school. I was very popular. I was a drummer in the church, in the school choir. I was a basketball, you would call it a basketball star, popular in school. And so I thought that would have taken me through life. And I graduated and passed through school, and I found out a couple of things that that you need something else to bounce back on. And I found myself out there floating. And for some reason, I started to going into the wilderness, and when I say the wilderness, I mean in the land and the woods, and with my snare drum, and started to play drums and to beat on it as loud as I possibly can. And it somehow brings some comfort, not only comfort, it brings some fulfillment to me. And then I found out I became a bit good at it, if I must say so. And I began to join various groups, play drums on many popular recordings throughout the Bahamas. And after a while, joined in with a group called the Mustangs, and playing at the Holiday Inn in Freeport, Grand Bahama, where I was a drummer and a second singer, background singer, where I spent 10 years of my life. And so in Jonestown, Grand Bahama, I met this beautiful woman young lady, I should say, called Verlene Patrice Delancey. And I know this one I wanted, and I had to have her. And I used to go myself with a lot of friends, used to go, and there was an old house next to her house, and we make that our basketball court. And all of this was an effort to just see this lady as she is going to church. And one day I built up nerve to hail her. I say, "Hello, how are you?" And right then I had the basketball in my hands, and I shot a shot, and through the grace of God, it went in. and she looked at me, and that was like, yes. So we got married. We got married. After about 10 years dating, of course, I became a very popular entertainer, whereby recorded numerous of recording. As a matter of fact, one of my songs, even to date, is the #2 most popular songs ever recorded in the Bahamas, which is called "Mommy No Light in the Kitchen." And so I was well known. You couldn't turn on your radio unless you hear it, and that I think that would draw so much attraction to me. And so we got married. Well, before we got married, I find myself now becoming well known and all of this kind of thing. And so drugs now get in the picture. You're popular and you feel now, in order to fit into a particular arena, you have to do what they do. And I want to tell you, if you name the drugs, and I've done it. You name the drugs and I've done it. I remember doing drugs from when it first came out. It used to be called Colombian Gold. I did that. You take this chain and put it in the middle of it, and it's the same color. I did that, and it was very sharp. And that became nothing for me. So we went, then cocaine was introduced. Freebasing was introduced. Learn how to cook the cocaine. And I was a loner most of the time, and I used to be inside there just freebasing, find sometimes completely my girlfriend. At that time, I failed to mention, my girlfriend only lived about 3 houses from me in Jonestown. So she used to walk through the road and sometimes meet me lay out. She nursed me back to life. And I would repeat that same thing over and over and over again. Then freebasing became not enough for me. Then I started putting the cocaine, the grass, the pills, the tablets inside that, and cooking it all up. And one thing with freebasing, once you get that first one, you always want to try to get that first one again. And you never get that, and that's what keeps you going on and on and on. And one of the things I would like to stop right here and say is that you don't have to go to the very, and I'm not knocking it, because maybe some of us have to, but I did not have to go to any rehab or rehabilitation center. I remember one time, after doing all the drugs, before I jump start, doing all the drugs, I end up, one of my bass player introduced me to heroin. And I have never done it before. And we were shooting up, and one of the rules about shooting up heroin is that you use the needle one time, and one person use that. I used to refer to ourselves as poor, not really poor. Poor druggies, because there were 4 of us used to be there shooting up, and we used that multiple times over and over, and in ignorance we wash it off, leave it there for 2 days, and next 2 days we come and we pick right up that same needle and shooting up again. And how I'm still here, I only can say through the grace of God. And so my wife and I got married. And the first thing she said to me, now, we getting married, you're going to have to stop all this nonsense. And I say, yes, babes, yes, babes. So therefore now that blockout, I couldn't do it in the home. So now I had to go out and start doing it. I remember one time I blocked out driving after being awake, tooting cocaine and working late at nights. I blocked out driving around the roundabout in the International Bazaar. And the next thing I know is this woman and my band members over me along with the police and all the nurses. And I opened my eyes in the hospital and the police said, can I talk to him now? And the nurse said, he is still a little bit dazed, not yet. And when he could have talked to me, the first thing he said, take him and take his test, urine test. And I know this is a God move. I don't need nobody to tell me this is a God move. I don't need nobody to tell me to tell me that what I am doing now, I was not born to do this. But somehow you gotta go through the process in order to appreciate where you are. And so they took my test, and when they came, now prior to this, remember now, I was tooting straight through. I haven't slept for 2 nights, and I was just freebasing and tooting the cocaine straight through. And when it came back, when they took my test, and it came back, the police looked at the nurse and she said, turn her finger down. And so after that, we got married. And so I started the traveling, and you know the rest that comes with it, womanizing and all of that. I was one of the favorite, myself and Mr. J. Mitchell of the Bahamas. We were one of the 2 favorites to travel with the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, promoting the Bahamas system with Prime Minister Lyndon Pindling at that time. And I must be did about 4 to 5 trips promoting the Bahamas. And when I came back, I remember clearly it was approaching the Christmas season. And so when my manager called me and said that your book for Abaco, your book for Walker's Key, and your book for Long Island. And I said, oh, good. And then Mr. David Bowen called me. He was then the entertainment director or something of that nature in Beaches, Turks and Caicos Islands. And I remember my wife and I discussing it, and I have been an entertainer some 30-something years at that time. And my wife never been with me, between my girlfriend and my wife, never been with me, or I never spent the holidays with her. And I gave up so much money to come to the Turks and Caicos to bring in the New Year's in 1999. I would forget every other year, but that particular year, I would not forget. And I remember doing the show, and after the show, her and Tamika came from church, and they came out there and asked me, how was the show? And for any other entertainer, ladies rushing you and, doing all the works to you, that's a highlight. But I said to them, it was all right. Kind of played it down. Went back to the room. About 2 of my colognes that I brought, favorite colognes that I brought down, was gone. And there was a note. And I got to tell you this note. The note said, just to have a portion of you, I took your cologne. And so that was like nothing. Went back to Freeport. And I didn't understand what was going on in my life. Went back to Freeport. Did not even got paid for the job that I did, the show I did at Beaches. And wasn't even thinking about it. Went back to Freeport that Thursday. Friday night had this vision or from God that my wife and I is sitting around a pool setting, and so for some reason I know from a distance that this person is coming after me. And so I told my wife, who was my girlfriend, I said, you go that way. And I went into what you call of a room. And when I went into bed and tried to cover my head up running from this person came in the door and took their belt off. And when he began to fold it and to make attempt to come at me, someone came into the bed, and I felt the bed lay down, sink in it. And this person came and tried to whip me, and the person who was in the bed reaches up and choking, and there was a fight we had in the bed, and the person who was trying to beat me, hand went in my mouth. And I was biting for my life, and then I wake up screaming. And my wife said, what happened? And I spat the blood and the meat of my jaw out on the floor. And she turned the light on. She said, what happened? And I told her the dream. That was the turning point in my life. I want you to know that I have never been to a rehab center. I want you to know that I have never had any counseling for drugs, something I've done over for the greater portion of my life. Simply because at that time I was with a saucer with so much cocaine in it, and there was first of all, let me tell you my background. I grew up after my parents came back to the Turks and Caicos. I grew up with a 16 by 13 or by 12 room, and in that room I had this big king size water bed with a 36-inch, those big ones, and so to get around it, I had to go across over the waterbed and all of that. And for about 6 months or 5 months, I didn't have nothing left. Free base and always know how to make money. I eat white rice and ketchup for about 6 months of my life. And I find myself in my room one day, the 8-track was playing. I remember clearly the T Connections. Many of you probably have never heard of the T Connections, but there was a song say, have you ever been to paradise? And I remember eating the last spoon of that rice, and I begin to pray. Because I grew up in a prayer home. And so that's the only thing I know what to do to bring me comfort. I begin to pray. And I find myself crying out before the Lord and asking the Lord, Lord, if you do this one for me, I won't go back on it. And I remember a knock came at the door about 15 minutes after. And the very thing that I told God that I wouldn't do, I repeat that and do it again. That knock at the door was a knock to go and play drums with somebody. So after I came back, that was finished. I came here to the Turks and Caicos, did the show, and when I came back that Thursday, I find myself with that encounter, and that was a Friday. That night, I was talking with my wife, and I tell her, I had it. I'm not going back that way. And then she asked me, what are you going to do? I say, I don't know, but I'm going to find a job and provide for my family. That was Friday. Saturday, I went to my job place, and I told them, I'm quitting. And they said, what? I say, I'm quitting. And I said, I gave my life to Christ. And Allison Cooper, I remember her clearly. She said, I'm not surprised, because we were doing these big bonfire, and she said, I used to watch you when you don't jump on the table and get them people taking off their clothes and naked and carrying on. You used to turn your face, something I never was conscious of. But it's just God working, planting seeds and turning things around in my life without you even know it. And so I want to tell you, don't give up. God is in the midst of your worst situation. You just gotta reach out and touch him and call upon him. And so I gave that up. Don't know what I'm gonna do. Sunday went to church. Find myself, don't know how I get from my seat in front of this little bony pastor called Pastor Naphtali Cooper, crying, asking God to come into my life and to create, to change, and to take away all those things that I crave so much. And I want you to know, God hears prayer, and he hears the prayer of a repentant heart. God came in, and all those drugs that I've done for more than 3/4 of my life, he made that a bitter taste in my mouth. And I can't say I never had the craving for it. Yes, I had the craving for it. And you too will have the craving for it. But you have to find something to lean on. For me, I used to walk around with my drumsticks in my pocket. I played drums for over 30-something years, professional. I used to walk around with my drumsticks in my pocket, and wherever the urge hit me, I used to just pick up my drums, my stick out of my pocket, and just start tapping. 15, 20 minutes. And when that urge leave me, I put my stick back in my pocket and I move on. The next, and wherever else it hit me, I take my stick out and I start doing my rudiments, another 20 minutes, and it gone. I'm here to tell somebody, it mightn't look pretty how you come out of something. Because when you're going through a fight in your life to conquer a demon, I want you to understand you might not look pretty at the end of it. So don't mind about that. You might not look good at the end of it, but don't mind about that. Your mission is to overcome and to conquer this demon in your life. And so eventually, through the grace of God, I conquer this demon, and the rest is history. Where I am, find myself to Turks and Caicos Island. I have this beautiful 5-bedroom home in the Bahamas that I had to leave. I don't know where I got the courage to leave it from. Came to the Turks and Caicos Islands with $67 in my name. I came home, my pastor gave me $1,400. I purchased my ticket with it, leave the rest with my wife. I kept $100 in my pocket. When by the time I reach here, $67 in my pocket. I come to tell somebody that God is a restorer. When we reach out to him, he could restore anything that you would give it rest in his hands. And so I come to tell somebody, learn to turn things over to God. And when you turn it over to God, he will bring the best out of you.
I hope that you have learned a lot listening to Pastor Dean. Sometimes you see individuals, you never know what they went through. You think that they were always the way they are today. But we've seen that Pastor Dean was married, he's still married, but continued to take drugs. He was a popular entertainer. He came to Turks and Caicos Islands, and God has blessed him. And he's blessed because he called the name of Jesus. When you do the same thing, please, there is hope. Just turn to God. Turn to him, and you will see everything flowing in the direction that he wants you to do.